welcome everyone to this special edition of Chicago Corner. It's being filmed here at the 99 Perspective Studio, also Hard Lens Media. My name is Kit Cabello, and I'm filling in for Jerry Vasilatos. He is the host of Chicago Corner. He's been doing a lot of phenomenal work, but unfortunately, he will be away. He is overdue for some rest and recovery as he recently had some surgery. Plus, a personal matter also took place. And I want to bring this up right now for our viewing audience, especially here for Chicago Corner. Right now, we have my good colleague, Daniel Lupker. He'll be manning the board. So the first thing I want to bring up is our tweet that was posted on, again, the Chicago Corner Twitter page. So this is going to be difficult to read, but I want everyone to explain the situation. And so it might be some time before Jerry comes back, but this was something that he had to deal with to help a good friend out. This is a tweet. I'm in a hospital ER with a friend who has had dry heaving spasms, literally throwing up her insides for the past day and a half. We got here at 8 p.m. It's now 1 a.m. They estimate a 10-hour wait. She needs IV and fluids and has only been triaged. U.S. healthcare is a effing crap show. If we scroll down even further in the thread as well, no one in the ER should have to wait 2 hours, let alone 10, in a country with the best healthcare in the world. Air quotes right there. And this is, again, can we zoom in a little bit closer on the image right there, or is that would be impossible to click on it further? Okay, thank you. Can we go to that second tweet? Just scroll up there. The second one above. All right. Yeah, right there. And this is one of the two best hospitals in downtown area. It's shocking. It's appalling. They have empty beds in the ER area while people wait in pain. If we scroll down even further, he's, again, Chicago Corner reaching out to a lot of our fellow colleagues, scrolling down further. Just spoke with another woman who's still here. She checked in at 5:30 p.m. and still hasn't gotten the results of her x-ray or EKG. It's now 3:55 a.m. What the F? And again, Jerry Vasilatos, good friend of the show, but really good friend to his people around him. So right now he's on a well-deserved break. I can imagine what it's like being at the ER at 8 p.m., still 1 a.m., and your friend who is suffering and needs medical attention isn't getting any. And recently also, Jerry recently had some surgery too himself, and he's right now on recovery. But we do send our best to Jerry, and I urge our entire viewing audience here at Chicago Corner to send well wishes and to please retweet that tweet on our Chicago Corner Twitter page, because healthcare is a human right. And the sad fact is that no one should be waiting 2 hours or 10 hours or even God knows how even longer just to get medical attention. This is a nightmare, and this is happening in the city of Chicago. Look, human beings deserve dignity and respect. And this amount of pain and suffering impacts us all. All of us have a story about someone suffering with the medical system here in this country. We have to be better. We here at the entire studio stand in solidarity with Jerry. And if he does get a chance to watch this video, Jerry, you've been doing phenomenal work with Chicago Corner. I'm looking forward to the day when you say, hey, Kit, get out of my seat and throw me on out. And I think we all can agree that Chicago Corner is doing really good under Jerry Vasilatos. He's been doing a lot of the content, having some great guests on the show. And I'm really looking forward to doing some collaboration work with him for the 2023 Chicago municipal election cycle. So it's only fair that we do move on. But if we can, real quick, Dan, if we could just show the main tweet again, just one last time. I just want to show our viewers, people are just joining in. Again, it's difficult to watch. And it's just, we just have to show it. So again, this is a tweet that was recently posted today on the Chicago Corner Twitter account. And I urge everyone to share it, retweet it. Healthcare is a human right. And we need to stand in solidarity with each other. With that being said, we're going to move on to our next story.
So first of all, Kit, I love you to death, but tonight you are fake news because I haven't had my surgery yet. I think there was a misunderstanding. What I had shared with you guys was I just needed to take some downtime tonight because my friend's still in the hospital and I'm managing some matters here. So I'm going to be having my own surgery. I have shoulder surgery. I found out I have to get done December 6th. So I was just letting you guys know that as we approach December 6th, I'll probably need some help covering shows first week of
Okay.
December, but I will be back this Friday night. And yeah, apparently I had an injury in when was it? 2016. I fell down and tore three muscles in my rotator cuff, and I had a very
Oh
good
my
surgeon,
goodness.
and he repaired all three tears. But you know me, I don't slow down, and apparently, me overdoing things over the past what 4 or 5 years since my original surgery, I tore one of the tears that were repaired came loose. So they said to me today when I saw the doctor for my consult, and thankfully my situation was not as horrific as what my friend Bethan went through last night. And I'll share a little bit about that with you in a moment because I did want to do a show on it, but since everybody was wondering, so yeah, so my doctor just said you got to get the rotator cuff, what do they call it, revision done sooner than later because you want to make it worse. And I'm like, fine. How soon can you see me? December 6th, fine. It's going to be a long recovery. I'll be down for like probably 3 weeks at home, but I'll be able to broadcast from there. So I'm around. I'm not out yet. And as far as what
Okay.
happened last,
I'm sorry. I was just I
no,
apologize
that's
here. I was
okay.
just
That's
Kit
okay.
was
But
so ready to replace you. I gotta
no,
I
say.
know
See,
no,
I
that's
heard him
not it
before
at
the show
all.
started.
That's not it at all. No, no, not true at
no,
all.
dude, Kit, we're teasing you. Don't worry about it. I know. I mean, we're so quick when we're going through Slack trying to get stories ready and stuff. I just wanted to clarify and let people know I'm still around. I mean, I haven't had surgery yet, but we'll have to deal with that later. But my friend, so what happened last night? I felt really, really, I felt very hesitant taking to social media because I got to let you guys know when I lost my leg back in 1986, they took me to Cook County Hospital to triage and trauma unit me. Then they took me across the street to Rush, where I spent 3 months in my recovery. They're a very good hospital. I don't want anybody to misunderstand. The professionals there, when you have scheduled appointments and see specialists, it's one of the top notch hospitals in the city. Emergency room, not so much.
Wow.
Don't.
Jerry, you're kind of
Okay, so
breaking up
there we
just
are.
a little bit.
They're completely overworked, and I think administration and management apparently is not staffing the ERs as adequately as they should. Because when we got to Rush downtown, my friend has what was it called? Cyclical recurring vomit syndrome. It was anxiety triggered. And guys, she was throwing up. She was throwing up. I literally thought she was going to throw her insides up because there's nothing left to throw up. That's how sick she was. And when we went in there, they said, "Okay, we'll check her in, but you need to know it's going to be a 10-hour wait." I'm like, "What the fuck?" I mean, what does she have to pass out till you treat her? Well, there are 36 people in front of you. I'm like, okay, but still, 36 people shouldn't have to wait 10 hours. And I stepped out of the hospital. I called Rush Oak Park because I'm like, I'm just going to get her over there if there's a less of a wait. Oh, no, it's a 10-hour wait here, too. So thankfully, within the first, I want to say 15 to 20 minutes, they saw how bad she was. And this was not drama. She was literally puking her guts up. So they took her in back for triage, but all they did was like, they gave her an ice pack. They gave her a Zofran, which helps with nausea. And then they put us back out in the lobby. And she had like 6 or 7 more of these literal vomiting, choking episodes. There was nowhere she could lie prone, reclined. I had to put her in the back of the van I was using. She was waiting out in the car because it's the only place she could recline. And finally, I mean, I didn't want to be rude with them, and I wasn't, but I said, look, even if you've got like a gurney she can lie on in here where it's warm, come up, right? But once we got on the gurney and she was in a private empty triage room that was unmonitored, she was not treated until 7 o'clock this morning. They did not start to administer IVs. They did not have her test results back. And the doctor who came in was a fine doctor once we got to see the doctor. But, you know, walking through the ER with her while she was rolled in, there was a lot of empty beds. I could see that there were some serious trauma victims in there also. I didn't seem the staff was overwhelmed. I don't know how the inside of an ER works, but goddamn, it should not take 2 hours, let alone 10 hours for anybody with any kind of emergency situation to wait to find out what the hell's going on. Because at the very least, I was telling them she's obviously dehydrated. She just needs an IV. Can you give her something to help her anxiety so she doesn't keep throwing up? And there was this, oh my God, this very, very quiet African-American woman sitting close to us. And I think at around like 1 o'clock, I went back out into the waiting room and she was still there. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're still here. I said, what time did you get here? This is at 1 a.m, guys. She got there at 5:30 p.m. And at
My
one,
God.
and they had done her X-ray, and they had done in I think a CT scan for her. But I imagine if you're getting an X-ray and a CT scan, you must have a fracture or something, and she had no idea what the results were at 1 a.m. So clearly, something is very broken in our emergency rooms, not just at this one hospital. When I posted on Twitter, there were stories that came across, horrifying stories, tragic stories from so many people like, yeah, that's what it's like here. And my own ER experiences in the past when I've had to go to an ER, and this is pre-pandemic, never that kind of a wait time. So I guess this was really shocking for me that this has become the new norm, and that given the fact we're the second year into a pandemic, you'd think after all this time, they would figure out how to better manage staff to accommodate non-COVID patients. And clearly they haven't. And I don't want people to think I was complaining just because we had to wait. I was, I was, I was enraged that anybody there had to wait. There were kids out there, kids with their parents. And one of my friends on Facebook told me she took her daughter to an ER not too long ago because she'd accidentally cut the tip of her finger. She was bleeding in the emergency room, right? They had to wait 6 hours. They were focusing more on asking her daughter if she felt safe at home than administering aid. And her daughter said, yes, I feel safe at home. I don't feel safe here. Now,
Oh
I
my
get
God.
that hospital personnel want to make sure that kids who come in with injuries, it's not at the hands of abusive parents. But she was bleeding for like 6 hours. Her mother was like giving her ice. They didn't see her. It's Kit, to quote you, it's madness. And best healthcare system in the world, maybe when you're paying for it and you're seeing your specialists and you schedule to see a specialist like a month out. So once more, back to my friend, the reason she didn't want to go to the ER this time is because she went a month ago for her shoulder, which she has a neurological condition, and she waited 9 hours then. They barely examined her, and at the end of the 9 hours that she waited then, they simply said, you need to see a specialist for that. That was in October, and the specialist can't see her until November 21st. No, December. She's seeing somebody else November 21st or something else. So when you go into an ER and they can't assess or properly diagnose you and they give you to a specialist, you have to wait another month. When I hear people saying, oh, we don't want to do Canadian healthcare, they have to wait. Really? What the fuck are we doing here? So
Yeah.
that's our unfortunate ER tale. I do not want to disparage Rush as a healthcare institution because they do have good doctors there, but there is something so broken with our emergency rooms right now everywhere. Someone thought I was talking about Northwestern. I'm like, no, the other big hospital downtown. So apparently this is a widespread issue in all emergency rooms. And I don't even know if it's related to the pandemic because some people have shared on Twitter and my Facebook where I shared what was going on to just like, point out, hey, healthcare ain't what everybody thinks it is in the United States of America as far as quick treatment. There were some people who said, oh no, this was happening pre-COVID. So make of it what you will.
Yeah.
That's my
Jerry.
field report, my unexpected field report.
Well, I have to say this, Jerry. We've all dealt with the healthcare system one way or the other, dealing with the emergency room. I had a similar story when my mother was sick, dealing with pneumonia, and we were in the waiting room for I think 7 hours, 8 hours before she could get treated and looked at, and even then, nothing was done for her. Healthcare is a human right. We need Medicare for all. And I will say this, you are a good friend in many ways. I don't want to,
You are
but
too, kid.
you've definitely stood in solidarity with a lot of the team members here. And, you've been really good at leading Chicago Corner, and at least you were there to stand with your friend.
Yeah,
And look,
sweetheart. She's one of my best friends. So
this situation that we're dealing with, it impacts us all when it comes down to Medicare for all, and we need
yeah,
to fight that good fight. And the sad
and
fact
support
is that
nurses. Support all these nurses who aren't. We've got a crisis here where they don't respect nurses because they're clearly understaffed, and even nurses have come forward and said, "Look, we're doing the best we can, but when you've got hospital administrative managers making decisions and they're not being paid, and I feel like the hospitals are cutting corners for cost reasons that are affecting not the quality of care, but the urgency of care. When someone goes into an ER and it's about pain relief. I mean, ultimately, thankfully, this wasn't something that was fatal, right? But when your friend is there coughing in pain and they can't administer anything to alleviate that, and they basically finally gave her a gurney to recline on after 6 hours, and it was only the comfort of being able to lie flat where she could breathe easy and relax that finally she was able to be comfortable till they could see her at 7 a.m. It's like, I wonder what our hospital bill is going to be for that lack of treatment for those 10 hours we were waiting until we could see the doctor. So,
yeah. Well, Jerry, nonetheless, I'm glad you were there to help her,
yeah,
and to be there with your friend. And the sad fact is that even as we speak right now, there's somebody in the city, dare I say it, nationwide, that's dealing with the same hour-long
oh
wait
yeah,
that you had to deal with. So what
I'm
happened to
sure
you
that
today?
that ER is full right now, if not fuller as it was last night in the same waits.
Yeah. Well, again, at least all I can hope is that you're feeling better and that your
Oh
friend
yeah,
is feeling better as well.
I haven't slept since 11 o'clock yesterday morning because I didn't expect it. So I'm over at her place right now. Her pets are fed. I'm going to leave here, go to my place, crash. I wanted to thank you for covering tonight because I couldn't get home I could not get. I couldn't get home in time to cover it and prepare a show. I thank you guys for filling in. I don't want to interrupt what you were talking about, but when you were talking about that I'm out, I had surgery. I didn't want to be. I didn't. I didn't
Got
want
to correct
anybody
the
to
record.
feel.
Jerry, I think you need sleep,
And let
buddy.
you all know
Get
I'm
some
still
sleep.
around. I am. You can tell I need it,
And
right?
get a ham sandwich for yourself, too.
All right. Listen, Kit and Ed, thanks for covering tonight, and I'll be back Friday, and we'll
I'll be
figure
your
out what we're going to talk
co-host.
about then.
I'll
Yeah,
be your
you'll be back with
co-host.
me. Absolutely.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right,
be back
guys.
with you
Listen,
Friday, so don't
enjoy the
worry. It's
rest
all
of the night,
good.
and thanks again. Okay.
Take
Good
care,
night.
Jerry.
Good night, Chicago.
Rumors of my impending shoulder surgery have been greatly exaggerated, although I know that Kit is very anxious to jump into hosting this show also and dominating the entirety of the 99 Perspectives Hard Lens Media Network. I'm here for a little while longer. I will stay here even after my surgery, December 6th, although in some limited capacity, at least for that first week. But I know I've got a great stable of colleagues here who are going to help out. And I only tease Kit. I'm very grateful for his willingness and availability to jump in for me when I had my emergency I was helping a friend with this past Tuesday. And we'll talk more about healthcare updates here in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois and our society overall in a little while. But I thank you all for the well wishes and for joining in my little Twitter storm Monday night when I was freaking out at the hospital, worried about my friend and how long it was taking for them to get her into treatment. But she's better. I think they released her tonight. She was undergoing testing throughout the week, and I'm sure she's going to be all right. She's a tough bitch, and I appreciate everybody's support in those Twitter comments also while we were freaking out at the hospital, hoping she was going to get care and be relieved of some of the pain she was suffering. As I recounted my experience earlier this week in the ER over at Rush Medical Center, I wanted to see if I could get some stats and find out, why there are such long waiting times in our emergency rooms across the city. And I came to this website that's called Hospital Stats. And it's curious because by this website, Hospital Stats, they claim the longest wait times, if I scroll down the list, are 6 hours and 52 minutes. And that would be at Jackson Park Hospital. They reference Rush University Medical Center as 3 hours, 11 minutes. No.
When's the last time they updated that?
Well, there are updates and comments on this page underneath that. I don't know how often they update it, but they're taking data from people all the time. I actually shared my experience. November 12th, my wife's been sitting at Porter Adventist for 2 hours, 20 minutes to have her father seen. Hospital since 12:30 p.m., now almost 7:30 p.m. November 11th, brought mom in who's 84 and has dementia around 10:30 a.m. She collapsed. This was at 12:41 p.m., still waiting for a room and test. What the heck? So, yeah, clearly I don't know how often they're updating the stats at the top of the page, because when I see Rush University Medical Center, their top waiting time is 3 hours and 11 minutes. No. Bethan and I were there for 10 hours until they even started administering IVs to her, IV dips, because she was dehydrated. We got there at 8 o'clock. I spoke to another woman at around 1 a.m. who I'd seen there when we arrived. And I felt so bad for this woman because she was just very quiet there. And I said, my God, you're still here at 1 a.m. She's like, yeah. So what time did you get here? 5:30 p.m. I'm waiting on my X-ray and my my EKG results. I don't know what's going on. So I was thinking, well, if you're getting an X-ray done, you must have had something fractured or broken, perhaps. And it's 1 a.m. You got here at 5:30, and you still have no results. So, given these ER wait times in Chicago hospitals on this website that are grossly underreported, I just thought, as I wanted to find out why are the waits happening, I couldn't find any solid articles on why, given the fact that the waiting times are misreported or underreported here. And the reason I did that was as kind of a follow-up to try to understand why we went through our experience. However, our very, very esteemed colleague, Lainie Petersen, had some other medical stories that she wanted to contribute tonight. So at this second half of the show, Lainie, welcome. And I'm glad you can join us with the other stories that you have regarding some medical updates here.
Yeah, well, it's good to see everybody. Thank you for being patient with me. I had an extremely stupid experience that did not involve the medical healthcare industry, but did involve the banking industry. So,
that's even worse.
That's even worse.
Sorry to hear that.
I did want to get into, because I remember you were talking about your experience with the ER. Yesterday, I was reporting on Civically Minded the national show, about what's been going on with our medical system. We've got a situation out in California where, Kaiser out there is wanting to cut people's wages, healthcare workers' wages, by something like 36%, refusing a 1% wage, and yet is willing to spend $250 million a week to undermine a strike.
Priorities?
Yeah, priorities, exactly.
We see where they are. We see where they are.
We see exactly where
they are.
They're
not for patients, and they're not for labor, and they're not for the nurses that they underpay and understaff to help the patients who are sitting in their operating rooms for 10 goddamn hours in pain, choking their guts out, or with fractures, or with kids that are crying that don't understand why they're not being seen.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's very difficult. Now, ERs are complicated because ERs are about triage. And you have got to take in the most serious cases first. It's not first come, first serve. And the problem is that, you may have somebody there who's been there for a long time, needs IVs, as in the case of your friend, but there may be people coming in with gunshot wounds. And
let me interrupt you for just a moment, Lainie. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But when you wheel somebody in who's got their head in their lap and literally can't speak because it's recurrent vomiting and there's no break and there's nothing coming up. When they said it's a 10-hour wait, I looked down at her and said, does she have to pass out before you triage her at least? Because she's clearly dehydrated. This has been going on for 2 days, and now it's at its worst, where she was trying to rest it off. And at that point, they're like, okay, well, at least triage her. We'll give her a Zofram to try to help the nausea, which she threw up anyway. And then they put us back out, and we had to wait another, I think it was 5 to 6 hours until they drew blood. To the
Yeah,
CT
welcome to a for-profit medical system. And these are the kinds of decisions that end up being made.
And I can't blame the medical staff. They were understaffed. It's not their fault. It's the administrators and the managers that are understaffing the departments. And 2 years into a pandemic, how the F can they not figure out how to compensate for the staff shortages, since they've got to deal with COVID patients, that in 2 years' time, you can't figure out how to rotate and have more people to handle? Because, Lainie, it's not just one person with a gunshot wound in front of there can be 3 or 4 people there, or someone like my friend who was literally choking to the point of almost passing out.
Yeah, it is. And this is what we have come to accept in this country.
Yeah, or we're numbly used to that we until it happens to us and we're there. We don't. I didn't realize it was that. I mean, last time I was at an ER was like in 2016, and I think the longest I waited was like maybe 2 hours because I'd fallen on my shoulder and I'd torn three muscles in my rotator cuff. I didn't realize, but when we went this time, I'm just like, come on, 10 hours, and I called Oak Park. Yeah, 10 hours here, and I'm hearing stories from all over the city. It's this way at Northwestern. It's this way. So again, I don't know when they're updating this website about ER wait times, but I'm sorry.
Keep in mind that's just that's a consumer website. People are putting in their own reports, and you have to consider that that's not. It's not. There's nobody behind that managing that data. Okay, that's just data that people are just throwing in, and the people who feel like actually doing it. Nobody's actually doing a comprehensive study to determine that. And I mean, I've seen the site. I know what it is, but it's self-reporting.
Okay.
And it's like going to Yelp or going to Amazon and looking at the reviews there. It's the people who can be asked to put in the review. So it is distressing. One thing I can tell people from my own experience and the experience of some of my friends is, sometimes these major medical centers, particularly if they're trauma centers, don't even bother if you don't have a life or death situation. Try to go one of the smaller hospitals who can help. But again, this is a kind of a situation, if people actually had good relationships with a personal physician, a lot of this could be resolved. A lot of people go to ERs because that's the only place they can be guaranteed of getting any kind of medical attention, because they don't have health insurance.
They can't afford to go regularly see their practitioners because
they can't afford to see a practitioner at all. They don't have a practitioner because they don't have insurance, So this is, but I mean, again, like 10 hours, I mean, and that's ridiculous. And the point is that fortunately she had you there to advocate for her. Think of all the people who have to go to these places on their own and they're just left.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And I would point out, we're in a world-class city. The American Medical Association is headquartered here. And this is what we get.
What can you say? I know. What can you say? What are they doing? What validates their high-paying positions to change them?
Yeah. It's just, look, people get sick. This is something that I talk about, that people get sick. In the end, it's not about whose fault it is or that people get sick. That's part of the human condition. And a society that can't make reasonable accommodations for that, which in my opinion include prompt and compassionate and effective medical treatment, that society has some real issues with it.
In the 4th hour, she was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And she was hunched over, so she couldn't breathe. When you're hunched over, your lungs are pressing on your stomach, you're puking. They had nowhere that she could lie down. So thankfully, I've been using my father's van while my Jeep's in the shop. So there was room in back. We went and put her in the van so she could lie flat and breathe a little bit easier, more comfortable. But when she was choking up again, we overheard one of the people behind the counter. Well, she's just gagging. And my friend looked up and said, "Really? I'm just gagging? You want to drink my puke?" And she held up the cup there, as if the gagging was just she was being over dramatic. Well, you can't even have the semblance of someone behind the counter having some courtesy, some compassion that, no, this is not a show. You can see what's in the cup and what she can barely puke up. To just say she's just gagging. I sensed it was just to kind of dismiss the urgency. eventually they were able to find an empty triage room.
Mhm.
And I said, even if it doesn't have to be a bed, just give her a freaking gurney to lie on. It was at, I think, the 7 or 8 hour mark that we got her on the gurney. She was lying flat. She was finally able to rest. Of course, she was a little bit more calm, but still, she was still coughing up a little bit. But she needed to lie down flat somewhere so that she could properly breathe and have some relaxation. So anyway, not to interrupt your story, but we were talking a moment about the compassion factor and overhearing someone behind the counter drop a comment like that when someone is clearly suffering and in distress just infuriated me.
It's difficult. I mean, I know people who work in ERs, and I've heard their side of the story, and it is a very difficult place. It's a place apparently that a lot of people who work in ERs don't last terribly long. They move on to
Yeah.
other areas of healthcare because they just can't hack it. It's just too much, because you don't necessarily know what's going on. I was talking to an ER nurse who said to me, very experienced ER nurse, who said, one of the you have to assess people very quickly. And he said, one of the other points, and I'm not saying by any means this is what's happening in your case, but he said very often, they're lying to you. They're not telling you why they're there. They're not
Yeah.
telling you what happened and what did. So that you've got these people who are trying to juggle their very human emotions while dealing with an overwhelming caseload, no support from management or the administration, and unfortunately, unprofessionalism will set in, and that was very unprofessional. It shouldn't have happened.
Well, I got to say this too, Lainie. I have a lot of compassion for and a lot of respect for medical and professionals, nurses, doctors. This happened at Rush Medical Center, and Rush Medical Center helped save my life. My mother was an operating room nurse at Rush before she retired. I was born there. It's literally like a family institution for us, which is why what I know care throughout the rest of the hospital is so so good, so overly what's the word, they deliver, they're able to, great standard of care. It just blew me away what a shit show the ER was, and by it was at no fault of the medical personnel. It was understaffed, and I understand what you're saying also, the flip side of that. But I just can't believe in the greatest healthcare system in the country, in the world, they can't get a handle on this so that these people aren't understaffed, that they depend on to help the people suffering coming in.
Well, if you talk to people where they have universal health care, where they have a national system, they would disagree that we have the best health care in the world. No, we certainly have a
It's
lot
our
of money here.
propaganda.
We have incredible talent. I think we
Yeah.
have some fantastic talent. We have fantastic research institutes and hospitals and teaching hospitals. And, some of the premier healthcare can be found here, but a lot of the worst can be found here.
So
Um,
let me also just really interject really quickly. Kathy, when I say it's the greatest healthcare system in the world, I think you're missing my sarcasm. It's not. I know it's not. This is the propaganda that we're fed, that they try to convince us that it is, when clearly we all know that it's not.
Well, I think
But
I do think there's something to be said here for the fact that we do have, in some sectors, outstanding medical talent. I mean, okay,
yeah,
sarcasm
I'm
or
talking
otherwise,
about the services, not the
but
standard of care of
but I'm
those
talking about,
practices.
we have all of this
Yeah.
incredible talent. We have access to all these resources. We have all these resources, all this talent, and yet only a certain percentage of people actually ever have access to that. And I would argue that in many cases, things like this would, the kind of the system being suddenly overwhelmed, wouldn't necessarily be happening if people were provided with a standard level of care that they could afford, or that they don't have to worry about paying at point of service, so that they can go ahead and get appropriate care. Funny, I was this is earlier this year. I was on a bus, and a woman sitting across the aisle from me complimented my mask, because these are the times that we live in. We admire each other's masks, and we got to talking. And she had asked if I had received the vaccine. I said, not yet. I was scheduled. And she was saying that she was scheduled herself, because she has an autoimmune disease, and her personal physician said, I only want you to take the Pfizer vaccine. because the doctor had researched this and felt that this was the most appropriate vaccine for this woman's condition, given this woman's condition. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be lovely if everybody could have that kind of a relationship with a medical practitioner?
Yeah.
Somebody who is actually customizing the treatment, who is taking the time to answer questions, to educate. And that's why I talk about this. People have lost faith in our institutions in this country. So they don't trust medical professionals. They don't trust anybody at this point because they've been treated so poorly.
I think to a certain degree also, many of us know our own bodies, and I've been in situations where I've diagnosed myself to have one of my physicians kind of dismiss it, and then we find out later I was right. Another friend told me tonight, we were talking medical horror stories, and she said at one time she was in the hospital and she was convinced it was appendicitis and she had to have her appendix out, and the doctors didn't do it. And when it happened later, I forgot what the joke, she basically rubbed their faces in it. She's like, "What, were you waiting for my appendix to burst?" And they said, "Yeah." What? So that's when you treat a person to confirm it's appendicitis or what? Yeah. Just
the worst case I heard, and this was going back probably about 10, 15 years, a young person was bitten by a black widow spider and she did not have health insurance. Went to the ER and the ER said, "Well, we can't treat you. We can't treat you. We can only treat you until we think you're going to die or lose the limb. Or we cannot treat you until we think you're going to lose the limb or you're going to die." And so she basically had to keep going back, incurring charges every time she went back until they determined that, yeah, if we let this go any longer, she's going to lose the limb. That's insane.
Of course it is.
That's an insane process. And I've talked to people about this. There are all kinds of conditions that, for example, medical insurance or Medicaid won't pay for, but it will pay for the result of those conditions, which is a lot more. Yeah.
Too often, an MRI or an advanced scan will catch something that can proactively treat something, but they wait and they take the conservative means to treat you. Meanwhile, if there's an illness or a tumor or something else that gets worse and worse and worse, that the conservative treatment can't cure, then when they take the MRI or the CAT scan and discover something that's grown and mutated, it's too late. Yeah. This is the reactive society that we live in, whether we talk about reactive with, I bring this up a lot with law enforcement, but it also applies to the medical community. You can't have reactive solutions, and it's because they don't want to pay for the costs of these tests that could honestly, Lainie, save them more money in the long run if they're able to assess things sooner to proactively treat things. But it's the capitalist state of our healthcare system, and this is going back to what we were talking about this past summer when we participated in the March for Medicare for All a rally down at Federal Plaza. In the middle of a pandemic, while Biden is all cool about mandating everybody take a jab, why can't he fucking mandate that swipe of the pen, executive order, Medicare for all? If this pandemic proved anything, it's the urgency, not just because of the virus, but everybody's other medical issues being complicated with immune deficiencies. He's all worried about getting everybody vaccinated for the virus. Well, what about the expenses that are related to cancer care? He's always talked about how he wants to cure cancer or any other debilitating diseases because the goddamn donors own their asses. And we are nothing but, we're not patients, we're customers. It's all about we can talk to a blue in the face about this. We know it. We just keep talking about it because it's frustrating. And it keeps manifesting, in every other encounter that we have. What are we going to do? Yeah. Where are the solutions so we don't have to bitch about it all the time?
Well, I think, other countries have figured it out.
Yeah,
and,
they have. Right?
Many other countries countries that have been around a lot longer than the United States have figured it out.
Of course.
And
but they're socialist, Lainie. They're
like rebellious teenagers. We've decided that the olds don't know what they're talking about, right?